Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenos días, buenas tardes, wherever you are. My name is Lori Winther, and I'm the Executive Secretary of the Franciscan Network on Migration. And in this episode of the network's In Camino series, we're honored to have with us Jozef, the president of the Haitian Bridge Alliance. We're going to have a bilingual conversation on current issues related to Haitians migrating from Mexico to the United States. Ms. Jozef is also the co-creator of Faith in Action and the Immigrant Justice Movement in Southern California. Interviewing Ms. Jozef is Tom Ricker of the Quixote Center in Maryland, and providing translation support will be John Marchese, who is also from the Quixote Center. En español, mi nombre es Lori Winther, soy la secretaria ejecutiva de la Red Franciscana para Migrantes. En esta sesión de nuestra serie En Camino, damos la bienvenida a Guerline Jozef, que es la presidenta de la Haitian Bridge Alliance, que próximamente es la alianza de puente de haitianos, para una conversación bilingüe sobre temas relacionados con la migración de haitianos en México hacia los Estados Unidos. La señora Jozef también es la co-creadora del movimiento Fe en Acción y Justicia de Inmigración en el sur de California. Entrevistando a la señora Jozef, contamos con Tom Ricker de Quixote Center en Maryland, el Centro Quijote, y John Marchese va a estar proveyendo apoyo en traducción a español. Él también es de Quixote Centro Quijote. Voy a pasar el micrófono virtual a Tom para que comenzamos esta entrevista. Passing the virtual microphone to Tom so we can get started on this interview. Una nota más, si quieren mandar preguntas, con gusto póngalos en el chat y lo vamos a responder como podemos. If you would like to ask some questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get them answered during the show. Thanks. All right, Tom.
Thank you very much, Lori. It's very nice to be here, and thank you, Guerline, for joining us. Very quickly, personal note, I just want to give a shout out to my mom, who's at a hospital in North Carolina and maybe watching us. So, hey, Mom. So with that, thank you for that. I just wanted to start with just a simple, Guerline, if you could talk to us a little bit about what the Haitian Bridge Alliance is, how it came to, how it got started, and about some of the work that you're doing just in general and where you're working.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you, everyone. My name is Alliance, also the Black Fund that is together on Black immigrants, the first in from Africa community. We started providing assistance for newly arrived Black immigrants at the border, and in 20 formalized as an organization. So as about 4 years now, but we didn't set out to have an organization. We were just responding to crises that happened. Many people might know that at the end of 2016, there were a flow of Black migrants coming from South America, fighting themselves at the border. So we received a call that they needed help to provide, they received a call stating that there were some Black people at the border. People didn't know where from. Some people didn't know where Haiti was. They were saying that they came from a place from Haiti. They were not sure it was Africa or where Haiti was. So for us and for me personally, it was just out of curiosity. Do we really have Black people at the border? were they really Haitian? If they are, then how did they get deported? Because I always, I say, if you tell me that we have Haitians at the shore in Miami, yes. But if you tell me we have Haitians in Mexico, how did they get there? So the first time we arrived, we met with a group of 12 young men and women between the ages of 19 to 24, 25. But what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Guerline?
yes, for translation. Lo siento, lo siento.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And I had a little trouble hearing you at the beginning, but I'll do my best.
You want me to start
Okay?
over, John?
No, está bien. Okay. Primero, Tom hizo una pregunta quería que hablara un poco sobre el contexto de la creación del Haitian Bridge Alliance de su grupo, y ella comenzó a decir que su grupo se formó más o menos en 2015, porque estaban llegando mucha gente negra a la frontera estadounidense con México en su área, y nadie sabía exactamente de dónde venían, etcétera. Pero ella, con otras personas, formó un grupo de ayuda mutua para comenzar. No estaban formando una organización como tal en aquel momento, sino solamente intentando conectarse con la gente y entender la realidad.
Gracias, John. And then, so when we arrived at the border, the first time we met the 12 young men and women, we started asking them, how did they get there? Who are they? How did they make it to Tijuana? How did they make it to Tijuana and to be getting to San Diego?
Sí, la primera vez que llegaron, tenían una reunión con un grupo de 12 personas y con una lista de preguntas. ¿Cómo llegaron aquí a la frontera de Haití en México, en San Diego, ahí en la frontera, al sur de California?
Yes, and so they started telling us their stories. The majority of them were survivors of the earthquake that happened in Haiti in 2010, killing over 300,000 people that day, leaving close to 4 million people completely homeless without anything.
Sí, la mayoría del grupo resulta que llegaron como un resultado del terremoto de 2010 en Haití, cuando murieron 300,000 personas en un día y 4 millones de personas dispuestas que no tenían casa después. Gente desplazada.
And so they started telling us that they previously left Haiti to Brazil, and they were able to go there as part of the humanitarian program at the time. Brazil was receiving people, and they were coming as manual labor, and they went to Brazil after the earthquake.
Sí, llegaron de ese grupo. Todos fueron originalmente a Brasil, donde tenían un programa de ayuda humanitaria, pero también donde necesitaban labor de mano. Y ellos estaban trabajando en esta profesión en aquel entonces.
Unfortunately, during 2015, starting 2015, all the way to 2016, a lot of the people were forced to leave Brazil because, as we know, the economy of Brazil collapsed. The political system also collapsed. The revenue that were expected from the World Cup and the Olympics did not pan out. So those people, the newly arrived people, were the first one to feel the weight of all of that upon them, and on top of racism and other abuses they were finding themselves dealing with.
Sí, cuando se colapsó la economía en Brasil en 2015, 2016, en esos años e incluso un poco antes, la gente necesitaba buscar otros lugares porque resultó que no hubo como las ganancias que supuestamente iban a haber de la Copa Mundial, por ejemplo, y esto además de los problemas de racismo frente a ellos y de xenofobia, resultaron que la gente necesitaba buscar otros lugares.
So they told us that they made the journey by foot from Brazil to the United States. They crossed the entire South America, Central America, crossing 11 borders to arrive in the United States.
Sí, así que decidieron hacer el viaje grande de sobre 11 fronteras de 11 países a pie desde Brasil para los Estados Unidos.
And a lot of them, unfortunately, died on the way. They did not make it to the journey.
Muchos murieron en el camino.
Because they had to go through the waters in Panama, they had to go to the mountains in Colombia, they had to go to the Darien passage where they have to literally go through the jungle. A lot of them died trying to go through those routes because they were not allowed to just travel through major cities. They had to take off-road.
Y como no podían usar las calles en las ciudades, tuvieron que pasar por aguas, por montañas en Colombia y a cruzar el tapón de Darién además, y muchos murieron en el camino.
So this is just a background of where the first wave of people that were coming to Mexico and asking for asylum into the United States were coming from Haiti after surviving the earthquake, to Brazil, to crossing the entire Central and South America to make it to the border to ask for asylum.
Sí, este es el trasfondo de la trayectoria de la gente que llegó desde el terremoto para Brasil y luego cruzando todas las Américas para llegar a la frontera con los Estados Unidos.
Okay, and so once people make it to the border with the United States, in large groups, starting in 2015-16, but sort of continuing, how have they been treated? How have they been met there?
At first, when they first started to arrive in Mexico, they were received fairly well. But all of that have changed. So before they arrived in Mexico, they were given a ticket per se, so they can continue their journey because the Mexican government knew that these people were en route to the United States. So they were giving a pass that they could leave from Tapachula, which is the border between Guatemala and Mexico, to actually make the journey to the US-Mexican border to come and ask for asylum. So that's what happened at the beginning. And
entonces, la pregunta fue, ¿cómo fue la recepción de la gente haitiana cuando llegaron en México durante su viaje a los Estados Unidos? Al principio es la respuesta, estaban recibidos muy bien, que hasta recibieron un documento para hacer el pasaje seguro desde Tapachula en la frontera sur de México para llegar en la frontera norte con los Estados Unidos.
And so we also, around that time, all the way to 2016, 2017, we saw good report from the Mexican community, from Mexicans themselves, as far as they were talking very highly of the newly arrived Haitian immigrants. They were saying those people are hard workers. They were saying those people are family oriented. They wanted them to be there.
Entonces, en ese momento también, en 2016, 2017, tenían también, además del apoyo oficial del gobierno, también el apoyo del pueblo mexicano, que también quería apoyar a sus nuevos huéspedes en el país.
But do you want me to go now?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things once people arrive in Mexico, they get through Mexico, initially treated decently. When they arrive at the U.S. border, things are a little bit different, though, from the treatment from the United States side. I think, you know, as things have evolved over time, I mean, some of the root causes of some of the things that have been really problematic under Trump start then with the metering program, for specifically targeting Haitian immigrants seeking asylum at the San Diego border. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about sort of what it's been like for the folks that have gotten that far, and then they're sort of stuck, by and large, they've been kind of stuck in Tijuana, and how they've adapted there.
Thank you, Tom. And so when people arrived, they will then, under President Obama, that's since 2016, they will present themselves at the border, and the majority of them will be released on a humanitarian parole. And they were also given what is called an I-94. It's a card for all, you know, non-citizen arriving into the U.S. You get this card that's, you know, that say that this is where you're from, and you entered, and they give you a limit, right? It could be 6 months, a year, or what's not. So those people who came in 2016 were fortunate enough to receive that card.
Al principio, en 2016, entonces, la pregunta fue hablar un poco más sobre cuando llegaron en los Estados Unidos. Al principio, entonces, durante la administración Obama, en 2016, la mayoría de la gente recibió un documento también que no tenían que estar en detención, podían estar libres, pero solamente durante cierto tiempo. Tenían una fecha límite para estar en los Estados Unidos legalmente.
And that paper allowed them to apply for Social Security card and also be able to have a work permit, so they can legally work in the United States as they continue their immigration process.
También durante cuando estaban haciendo sus trámites, podían pedir una visa para trabajar y tener un seguro social que es necesario para tener, es la identificación oficial en los Estados Unidos.
Unfortunately, on August 28, 2016, that program started. And instead of releasing people under the humanitarian program so they can continue their process with their family in the United States, they started putting them in immigration detention centers, in immigration prisons.
Pero hubo un cambio el 28 de agosto de 2016 y comenzaron a poner la gente en detención en vez de darles la libertad.
And so we started seeing a change as the elections were approaching, with narratives from different parties, right? Using immigration as a subject to win elections and move people within party lines. We started seeing right away, even before the election, it changes in how people view incoming immigrants at the border.
Sí, pero hubo un cambio al discurso nacional en el contexto de las elecciones de 2016. Incluso antes de tener los resultados de las elecciones, hubo un énfasis más más fuerte en cuanto al tema de inmigración.
So at the end of 2016, all the way up to 2017, from what we understand, about 10% of the immigration prison, people who were in immigration prison, were Haitians.
Sí, en 2016 y 2017, hasta un 10% de la población de las prisiones de inmigración fueron gente haitiana.
So that is just to give you an idea of how quickly things can change from allowing families to stay together and and continue the process while they are able to provide for themselves, to then now taking them and separating the families and putting most of the men in prison. If the mother is pregnant or have a small baby, they might release them. But the father is always put in immigration prison and then deported. Every single person, a single young man, a single young woman, a father, they will all be put in immigration prison.
Sí, a veces, según las posibilidades hay o las condiciones de cierta persona, por ejemplo, en el caso de un embarazo, hay una libertad condicional concedida a la persona en prisión de inmigración, pero generalmente están separando las familias en estos casos o están manteniendo la mayoría encarcelada.
So certainly elections in the United States have never been good for immigrants. Certainly. So as we're approaching this one, obviously the situation has changed fairly dramatically in some ways with the restrictions on asylum from the Trump administration, and now dealing with the problems that COVID has brought in terms of border closures. So in the very current context, what are some of the main challenges you're seeing that people from Haiti are facing as they're trying to cross Mexico and get to the United States? Are they even still trying at this point?
They are still trying, Tom. And we are seeing, not just right now, but for the past 2 years, how the immigration system has changed. And one thing I really want people to understand is that the decisions that are being taken in the United States, the policies that are being implemented in the United States are affecting immigrants way before they arrive at the border, right? The reality is MPP, the immigrant protocol, protection, I don't know what they are protecting. The building of the wall, not the physical wall, but we see how policies in the United States has turned Mexico itself, the entire country, into the wall that is stopping immigrants from having access to due process for them to come and ask for asylum.
Sí, la pregunta fue como que nunca durante las elecciones es un buen momento para los migrantes en los Estados Unidos. Esta es nuestra historia, pero que además este año tenemos el contexto de COVID-19. Por eso Tam hizo la pregunta de, ¿todavía están intentando la gente de emigrar a los Estados Unidos? La respuesta, que hubo muchos cambios en los últimos 2 años, pero la gente todavía anda intentando llegar, a pesar de las decisiones tomadas y las políticas implementadas. Pero y ella quería hacer hincapié en este tema, que la migración, la política anti-inmigrante estadounidense ya se extiende mucho más allá de nuestras fronteras, y que todo México, todo el país de México ya es el muro nuevo o otro muro para llegar en los Estados Unidos.
And so we can see how everything changed right after the election. The moment that the results were given in November 2016, we saw a major change. And we also saw that a lot of people, a lot of Haitians and other Black migrants decided to stay in Mexico because they knew that the moment they entered, they will end up in prison. So a lot of them chose to stay in Mexico, mostly in Tijuana and other border cities.
Sí, entonces, a partir de las elecciones de 2016, mucha gente negra o de ascendencia africana decidió quedarse en México porque las condiciones fueron mejores para ellos ahí en muchos casos. No solamente gente de Haití, sino de otros países.
And so we can see a growing number of all immigrants, but looking at Black immigrants being stuck at the border since 2016.
Sí, muchos quedaron en Tijuana y ya hay muchos migrantes negros que están ahí viviendo al lado mexicano de la frontera ya durante 3 o 4 años.
So that is where Haitian Bridge Alliance comes in. So we started doing a bi-weekly humanitarian trip to Tijuana, where we partner with legal representation, with organizations that provide legal assistance, medical assistance, and other basic necessities to be able to assist those migrants who decided to stay in Mexico, in Tijuana.
Sí, así que comenzaron un viaje humanitario cada 2 semanas a Tijuana, concretamente su grupo Haitian Bridge Alliance, para ayudar con aspectos legales, médicos o de otros tipos para apoyar a la gente que queda ahí.
We partnered with shelters and churches that were housing people to be able to answer to those needs.
Sí. Sí, tienen ya buenas relaciones con algunas iglesias y casas de migrantes para ayudar con estas necesidades.
So now we started doing rapid response social services in San Diego for newly arrived immigrants, getting them to their families, also providing humanitarian assistance for people who are still in Tijuana, and now starting as well a program for people who find themselves in immigration prison.
Ok, entonces ahora hay 3 aspectos. Hay lo de ayuda humanitaria en Tijuana. También hay respuesta rápida para ayudar a la gente en San Diego. Y el tercer aspecto es apoyo para la gente encarcelada en prisiones de inmigrantes.
So I know we're coming kind of close to the end of our time, but I know things that you and I have worked closely together on in the current context have to do with deportations and people being expelled, just sort of summarily expelled at the southern border, including Haitians. And so maybe you could just say a little bit about what's been going on in the last few months with folks being kicked out and how that's been taking place.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, what we've seen happening since the COVID-19 started is the fact that can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, the screen's frozen for the moment, but we can hear you.
Oh, ok. Well, voy a traducir lo que decía. Entonces, la pregunta fue sobre las expulsiones y deportaciones, porque Tom ha estado trabajando con Guerline y su grupo en este tema ya durante meses. Y ella estaba diciendo que en el contexto de COVID-19 ya hay más expulsiones, pero ya.
Okay, I'm sorry, technology is giving me some, but I don't know if you heard me before.
No, you can go ahead. We were just going to talk a little bit about the CDC order, the expulsions, and yeah, we heard very little. So go ahead and start.
Okay, so what we see happening now is that the administration is using COVID-19 as a weapon against all immigrants, and more so Haitian immigrants. What we are seeing is starting in March, they started to not sending families and immigrants into the regular channel of detention, but they will hold them in clandestine sites such as the McAllen, San Antonio, the different sites where they will hold people into hotels and literally expel them from the country without having to go through the due process. And as Tom mentioned, we have been working on different campaigns focusing specifically on deportation and expulsion of people to Haiti, to the point where we are seeing around May people that were expelled and deported to Haiti. Once they arrived in Haiti, some of them, at least 4 of them, had tested positive for COVID-19.
Sí, ya entonces, en el contexto de COVID-19, el gobierno las autoridades del estadounidense aprovechó esta oportunidad para abusar un poco su propia política sobre cómo manejarlo de expulsiones y detenciones. Usaron lugares privados y clandestinos, como hoteles, por ejemplo, no oficiales, para guardar gente antes de expulsarla, y muchas personas expulsadas también tenían casos positivos del coronavirus al llegar en sus países.
And we see that a lot of people, families who have been expelled and deported, have children as young as 6 months old. So literally children less than 1 year old are being expelled with their families from the United States upon entry using Title 42, which is what Tom just mentioned, that they are able to just send people back to their native countries.
Sí, este reglamento que se llama Título 42, que están usando en este caso para hacer las expulsiones de gente, ha dejado personas, en muchos casos, padres de niños incluso de 6 meses, deportados, con los niños quedando en los Estados Unidos.
I don't know how much time we have, but I'd like to touch on the report that we're working on about Black immigrants coming to the border that is focusing on Tapachula.
Before you go ahead with that, Guerline, if you don't mind, there was a question from the audience. We have it here in Spanish. This is from Víctor. Dice, en español, viví en Puerto Príncipe desde 2015-2016. Pude acompañar comunidades juveniles. Muchos jóvenes migraban hacia Chile. Sin embargo, perdíamos comunicación con ellas. Mi pregunta es, ¿cómo prevenir la trata de personas en medio de esta realidad? Creo que no poseemos todas las herramientas antes de este desvío. I'll just translate that quickly for you. This is Victor, who is saying hello from Panama and who lived in Puerto Rico, in Puerto Príncipe from 2015 to 2016. He was working with youth communities, and many of them were migrating towards Chile, and they lost communication with them. So his question is, how do we prevent the trafficking, trata, so I'm assuming that's trafficking of people in this situation, this reality. He feels like we don't have the tools that we need to confront this challenge.
The reality is, when you have people that their only hope is to make right, it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And we understand that people also started to migrate to Chile. And as we know, everything that's happening in Chile right now, the racism that is extremely rampant in Chile, are also pushing the Haitians who have been in Chile for the past 2 years or so. So I'm sorry, Victor, that you have not been able to get in touch with those people, but the majority of them probably have also made the journey to trying to get into the US. It is, as you mentioned, extremely impossible for you to to pinpoint what's happening. And we know that the possibility of them being caught, as part of human trafficking ring is very real.
Okay. Gracias por la pregunta, Víctor. La respuesta es que como ya sabe, el viaje es muy difícil y la gente no tiene acceso siempre a recursos de comunicación, así que puede ser muy difícil mantenerse en contacto. Pero Guerline asegura que en muchos casos la gente sí está llegando, pero por eso quería afirmar la realidad que sí existe trata de personas. Es más difícil saber cómo esto, pero muchos que quieren estar en contacto no pueden.
So we hear stories from a lot of people who make it to the United States about how they had to pay, guides or other possibly traffickers in order for them to make it there. They had to
It seems that we have lost Guerline, and there's Tom. It seems that we have lost Guerline, so I don't know if she'll come back. Tom, do you want to, maybe we'll wrap up at this point?
Yeah, I wanted to just say, I know that Guerline began to mention a little bit before the question that the Haitian Bridge Alliance is working on a report that's focused on the situation of Haitians in particular and other immigrants from Africa and elsewhere as they're coming through Mexico. And I believe that the focus of the report is going to be on the situation in southern Mexico around Tapachulas. So we will make sure Quixote Center, Franciscan Network on Migration, everybody to the avenues we have that we will share and help publicize the report when it's available. It's not out yet. I believe it's supposed to be released in September. So we will do our best to make sure everybody knows about that.
And we'll run right now the links so you can write those down.
Sí, Tom compartió que Guerline comenzaba a decir que va a haber un reporte saliendo de su grupo que están publicando en septiembre, un reporte sobre la situación de los migrantes negros y con un énfasis en los haitianos, con un enfoque principal, él cree en el sur de México, en Tapachula. Pero que cuando tengamos esta información la vamos a compartir en las redes de nuestros grupos, en la Red Franciscana de Migración, en el Centro Quijote y, por supuesto, Haitian Bridge Alliance.
I apologize. The technology is not cooperating for us. Tom, I don't know if you were able to hear the last answer, but have another question. I try to get it now. Hopefully it doesn't cut off again.
Yeah, I was just, I think we heard some of it. I was just letting people know about the report that was coming out in September. So, and then letting them know that we would share it, that we would all through our network share it. So everybody listening now should get a chance to see it.
So Guerline, we are so appreciative that you could be with us today. I know you're very busy and you have a lot on your plate, and we really appreciate you taking the time. Como apreciamos la presencia de Guerline, que es una persona muy ocupada con muchas responsabilidades, y pues estamos muy agradecidas a ella que podría estar con nosotros hoy en la Red Franciscana para migrantes, y también agradecemos a Tom y John por todo el apoyo de las preguntas, de ayudarnos a preparar esta sesión. We appreciate Tom and John from the Quixote Center, who have done such a great job in preparing this session for In Camino, and really grateful that everybody could be here, and We hope that if you missed any of this, you can go back and have a look on it. Have a look at it. All of the videos for En Camino are posted online. Si han perdido partes de esta presentación, pueden ir en línea en el Facebook, en el YouTube, a ver nuestras páginas y allí encuentran todo eso. Si acaso llegaron un poquito tarde y no escucharon todo, pues pueden ver toda la entrevista allí. So, thank you very much. I think we'll sign off now. One last thank you to Jaime, who is always behind the scenes. I call him the Wizard of Oz, and he is making the technology work for us. Y un gran aplauso para Jaime, que está siempre atrás de las cortinas, ¿no? Ayudándonos con la tecnología. Y muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.